Double shot, almost a double
Ooh.
shot right there. We're ready to go tonight. It is Thursday night football, and it's Buffalo versus Houston. Josh Allen and Davis Mills taking center stage. Monday night football, profitable. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully, Tom, we get the same thing tonight.
Yeah, hopefully we do. Monday was solid. Tonight's game is interesting. The 5.5 line is certainly tough. I know a lot of people will be looking to take the Texans out. I said on shows earlier today, take the Texans with the points. I haven't bet on them actually, but that's the way I'm leaning. I'm also leaning on the under. I don't think the Texans want to turn this game into a shootout. They can't win. I don't think they can win this game 35-30 type of situation. They have to win this, 20, 24-20 area.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, too, because when I look at the game, and let's just say the 2.5s were those look-ahead lines, obviously they're no longer available. 5.5s up to 6.5s. We even see now Bet365, Tom, come in with a 4.5 here as a favorite towards the Buffalo Bills. I don't like the side. Like, it's easy to say, yeah, we think, like, Buffalo's going to win this game because they're the better team.
Right.
Then again, we probably thought Buffalo was going to beat Miami. They got killed. It's a Thursday night. It's a short work week. But the one thing I agree with you on, 45.5s were down to 43.5s this morning. And I liked it at 43.5, even as the under. 44.5 as it sits now. I like the under in this game because simply, Tom, I don't think we're getting a lot of explosive plays, which means eating up the clock, holding teams to field goals here. That could go a long way. Could be wrong, but I am looking at the under as well.
Yeah, I haven't played under 44.5. That's where I'm looking. That was obviously a key number. If you got the 45, that's great. If you got the 2.5 with the Bills, like you said, the look-ahead line, which I didn't mention on the show last Thursday, that it was Bills 2.5, and I was anticipating that C.J. Stroud would not play. I don't want to say it's an ugly game because I do think we get a decent amount of scoring, but this flying over to 50 points is just not something I can see happening.
Yeah, and also Keon Coleman down for a second straight game. Obviously, Gabe Davis is back up here. Shavers might be one of those guys that you're looking for as those secondary wide receivers. Khalil Shakir still in the slot. And, of course, Cook is in the backfield, and you got Josh Allen, who gave that six-pack last week. 3 touchdown passes, 3 rushing touchdowns. Of course, that guy's going to be cooking. But this is a really, really good defense for the Houston Texans that should be able to get pressure on Josh Allen. How do we play it from that perspective today? Because, again, I look at the under, but I do think there's some opportunities to make some money. Davis Mills at 211.5 as his passing prop listed on FanDuel. Take a look at Josh Allen, 220.5. What's the attack, Tom, for both of these teams for you?
Frankly, I think, the Texans want to turn this into a bit of a rock fight again. Like, they don't want to turn this into a shootout. I think Woody Marks is in a good spot. The Bills' run defense is terrible. We know that. Texans' defense is solid top to bottom. But if you think that the volume of skill lies on the Buffalo side of things, can we trust Davis Mills to get the ball to Nico Collins enough if they're falling from behind? Probably. But at a certain point, Buffalo will, look to eliminate Collins from the game if they know that they're in a full passing game script, which I think is what the Texans want to remove from the game. Like, they don't want to be in obvious passing situations. That will benefit them if they are not in that. So I don't like Mill. I'm not going to trust him with his number. I think he could very easily go over 211. I like Josh Allen under on his attempts, under 30.5 attempts. It's -120, -115, whatever it might be. I just don't think he's going to have to pass the ball a ton. Like you said, no explosive plays in this game.
Yeah, I look at Davis Mills, and I say the 211.5, like a correlation to. They need to hang around. He's got to throw for more than 211. This isn't a game where Mills throws for Tom like 160, unless the defense has 2 touchdowns or whatever happens. Like Woody Marks controls the ground game with Nick Chubb. Like, I don't see, even though you can technically run a Buffalo, that's not the, how we got to the party here for Houston. The one thing I do like, though, is you came in talking about Mills in that Denver game, got basically a half in that one, and then you got 2 full starts, which you look pretty good with your statistics.
Yeah.
Forced to throw, Tom, in that first game against Jacksonville in the big fourth quarter comeback. Not really forced to throw against Tennessee, but still did have a pretty good night. And I'm with you on that. Like Nico Collins, obviously, he's the target monster in that team. He's going to get the most snaps. We understand it. Mm-hmm. There are some young wide receivers around them that I do think are active tonight. But I also think that the Buffalo Bills win this game. So you're not controlling the ground game. Davis Mills has to throw, and I think there's some pretty good options, even with Dalton Schultz at tight end, where somebody's got to catch those passes, Tom, if we're looking at 211 or so as a passing prop.
Yeah, I certainly like Dalton Schultz. Nico's obviously the most talented player they have on the, I'm going to say at least on the offensive side of the ball. And, the ball should be going to him. Give him 8 targets tonight. I think he can get there, over 69.5 or 70, whatever it might be. But I think Schultz is certainly a viable option. As you said, Keon Coleman is inactive, second straight game. Dalton Kincaid is also inactive tonight. So it should be Dawson Knox. But, Khalil Shakir is only 41.5. We've seen some good usage for him really throughout the majority of the season, whether Keon Coleman is there or not. So I certainly like Shakir, and I like the
You know what's interesting about this game too? You look at the touchdown props from the passing perspective. Usually I love it. Like Davis Mills plus 124 to throw two, Josh Allen plus 122 to throw two. I just don't love the scoring in this game where I can pinpoint how we're going to score. But I do think, like, if we're looking at the running back situation, like, yeah, Cook, of course, has a chance to have 15, 16 carries here, bust over 100 yards and score a touchdown. But that's a really good defense. I don't like the rushing props, Tom, which means I like the passing props more than the rushing props tonight. If I had to say, what's a better chance? Like, multiple rushing touchdowns for a team or multiple passing touchdowns? I'm going passing touchdowns tonight. And they're both money.
Yeah, I would lean the same way. I think that's a good point. Cook is in a tough matchup. A lot of people, when they immediately think of the Texans, they think of a great pass defense, but they also have a really solid run defense. And the Bills, their strong suit would be running the ball and having, again, a kind of spread out passing offense. But I'd rather go with the spread out passing offense tonight than a solid run game from the Bills. Chop is asking, do we get to the TDs yet? No,
Yeah.
we've not gotten to the TDs yet for the TD jackpot. Which I have a play on, which we will get to shortly.
Yeah, we will. We'll get to that stuff here. But let's go to the rushing props right now. James Cook, Tom, listed 78.5. Woody Mark, 61.5, which means you're expecting him to get high teens carries to sort of achieve that. Josh Allen, 32.5, never a bad look. Nick Chubb, sort of an afterthought at 21.5. And then Davis Mills at 8.5. For me, it's usually the old, and I haven't taken a lot of rushing props for quarterbacks lately, but a really good defense usually means that an athletic quarterback probably is going to get outside the pocket. Maybe you do that. I don't like the rushing props from the running backs, to be honest. Like, if Cook goes over 80 yards against that defense, Buffalo probably kills this football team.
They do, and Woody Marks' number has been bet up and up, and seeing the volume that we see from him, 18, 14, 10 over the past 4 weeks, the 10 for 27 versus the Denver defense really doesn't bother me too much. Like, it is tough, but he should be pushing to 14 to 17-ish carries tonight. That's where they want him. I don't mind the look on Nick Chubb just because it is a short week. If this was a Sunday game, I wouldn't have interest in Nick Chubb, but just because it's a short week, I think they get both running backs in there. And, if you want to shy away from Nick Chubb and maybe look to him at halftime, see how the game's going, I think that's fine, but Nick Chubb should be in there. I like Woody Marks. I'm starting him on my most important dynasty team, just full disclosure. I don't like his prop though. I think 61 is a very high line for him. And it's been, and like, this is a public line for Woody Marks, knowing how bad the Bills run defense is. I think you can play it. I just don't love it.
Yeah, if you're playing to an under, you probably like Woody Marks a little bit more because the one thing you don't want is a shootout, which means they're not running the football. You got to chase down the Buffalo Bills and see how that plays out. So the wide receiver position tonight, Nico Collins under 70 yards now at FanDuel, 69.5. If you look at the favorite here for the Buffalo Bills, 41.5 for Khalil Shakir. Like, you're getting these low numbers because obviously how good Houston's defense is. Schultz 38.5, Knox 27.5, Higgins 28.5, Cook 16.5, and down the list you go. But I know a lot of people, and you see Matt in there asking this question. We had Cam Stewart on this morning talking about Tyrell Shavers, only 23.5, looking to get more optics there. But you do have low numbers. Gabe Davis, and again, they're all in the same boat for Buffalo. Josh Palmer, 31.5. Tyrell Shavers, 23.5, Tom. And Gabe Davis, 24.5. If I gave you those three players, what are you looking at there between those guys?
It might be Gabe Davis and Shavers. I think those are totally fine options. They are elevating Gabe Davis from the practice squad with Keon Coleman inactive. So, maybe there's a point that they want to get him the ball. And, it's going to be a situation where, let's see, Shakir, Knox, Shavers, and Gabe Davis. Maybe this is the game where, like, Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore, they get pushed out of it. And they're like, all right, let's see what we have with Gabe Davis. Obviously, there is a little bit of a connection there dating back years ago, and they just want to roll with him. And I think that's a totally fine way to approach it. So Gabe Davis, Shavers is fine rather than, going to some veterans.
Yeah, like, I just want to see how they play this out, too, because you do have some opportunities where, again, somebody has to score and somebody has to catch passes, and you're not looking for a lot at that point. Like, you wish, like, yes, Dawson Knox, would be able to handle his business, or like if Kincaid was out there, he probably would do some damage. I do think Schultz, because I look at it more tonight, Tom, from a Houston perspective. Like, Buffalo probably should win. Josh Allen probably should have a decent day. And same thing with Cook. And you sort of spread it around at wideout. Same thing there really with Houston. But from a perspective saying, if I'm going to get, let's just call it 200 passing yards, if Nico Collins gets 70, Tom, that's 130 plus still out there in the marketplace for
Right.
some guys to get it. And again, Hutchinson doesn't catch a lot of balls, 13 and a half. The guys I sort of look to is say, if I want to remove Nico Collins, it's going to be Schultz and it's going to be Higgins for me, Tom.
Yeah, I would agree. And, I was talking with someone earlier saying, of the, offense, defense, what's the most important part of this game? I think the Houston offense is the most important factor in this game.
Yeah.
If Houston's not able to score, I don't think any of the props will be live really on either side, except for Bills rushing props. Because if the Bills get out, again, the Texans defense is awesome, but if the Bills get out to a 14-3 lead, 17-7 lead, and the Bills defense steps up and can keep Davis Mills under control, which isn't saying much, I'm not sure how many of the Texans props will get there. So the Texans offense is the most important factor in this game to pushing all the props forward. So give me Higgins. I like the young receivers that they have, and I would trust him. Yeah,
14 total targets. And also, you're trying to look at it in like a microscope of, all right, where are they comfortable? Because if you told me like Higgins in week 2 and 3 got a lot of work and, CJ Stroud loved him, but then Davis Mills didn't. It's almost vice versa now. Like Davis Mills starting quarterback past 2 weeks, like I'm going to throw it around if guys are open and if they're making catches. So I do like that option where Mills is comfortable with Higgins at this point. And of course, if you get a good pass rush, which Buffalo does have, maybe you dump it off to the tight end. So those are the two angles I'm looking there. Touchdown market props here, Tom. Josh Allen was around a minus 125 this morning when I was doing the early line. He's down to minus 115. James Cook minus 120, and everybody else is plus money. And there are some big money tickets down there for some decent players, Tom.
Yeah, I'm looking at Dawson Knox for the TD jackpot. Again, like the role that he plays.
390.
He's consistent. Yeah, he was I think it might have been 350-ish when I bet him earlier. Something the total has dropped, so obviously the odds are dropping with it. But I like the role that Knox plays. Keon Coleman not being active, I guess, is a boost for Knox. He's the red zone target that they should be looking to. Khalil Shakir is not a big body red zone target. He's a slot receiver. Yeah. I think he's good in his role, but come down to the goal line or 5-10 yard line, Knox will be there. I think it's equally as fine to look to Dalton Schultz. You want to get off of some of the chalk that could be Nico Collins. I will say, as we talked about it before with Carver, that people are foregoing that top tier when it comes to the TV jackpot, and then they're trying to find that next grouping. Because of that, Nico Collins actually may be better than we realize, specifically for this promo. And still plus 150 odds for their best offensive player is still very good.
Yeah, Monday night, Tom, I was like, all right, let me take 2 players there. I'll bump them up a little bit. And that was Pickens, who went over his 70 yards plus 110 really easily, almost doubled that up. Had him to score a touchdown, which was great, but then also Ferguson, who didn't have a good game. I bumped him up like 40 yards, didn't come close to that, but scored the touchdown, which he was close to I think it was 185 or something like that by the time it was close to game time, which was fantastic. So if I do the same thing tonight, and I do think, like Buff, obviously they have to score points. Like it'd be rare if each one of these teams didn't score a touchdown. But if I do the double down like I did last week, Tom, Nico Collins plus 150 and Dalton Schultz plus 330. Like those are going to be the pass catchers that get the most targets in the red zone. One of them comes away with it and you cheer for Schultz. And if it doesn't come up, you still got a plus 150 in Nico Collins. One of those 2 players is scoring tonight for me.
Right. And I would say the same thing. Like if we bet on these, like if we bet on Collins and Schultz and one of them catches it and then happens to be, Xavier Hutchinson has like 2 targets and one of them happens to be for a touchdown, so be it. But I'd rather lean into the guys that see the highest target share. And it's not like we're getting a minus 110 and a plus 125, a plus 330 price on arguably the guy that's being number 2 in target share or tied for number 2 after Collins at plus 330. I think that's just objectively good.
We're taking. I look at Bet365 here. Maybe one of the lowest numbers I've seen with 2. Like Josh Allen is an awesome quarterback. Like Davis Mills is decent. He's thrown some touchdown passes. Look at this team total number here. This is for both teams. Touchdown passes, Tom. 2.5 is only a minus 135. Usually 2.5 with 2 bad football teams around that 165, 170 price points. 2.5 tonight. Now, again, I'm not betting it because I don't like the totals itself. That's why I didn't take any touchdown props along with some of my props that I like tonight, because I want to just look at the middle of the field as opposed to, oh, man, they had a chance to score 1 touchdown and somebody else got it. How do you feel about 3 touchdown passes tonight? Or if we counterbalance it and go to rushing, let me see here. Total rushing touchdowns, Tom, is 2.5 at plus 100, which means 3 rushing touchdowns. I'd rather take the 3 passing touchdowns, Tom, than the 3 rushing.
Yeah, it's obviously getting the plus money is one thing, but I'd rather lean on the passing than trusting
Yeah.
them to move the ball. I think that's the way to go about it. You want Allen to come through with 2, Mills to chip in one of his own, and you go from there.
Yeah, how about Matt saying, what do you think about Mills over 8.5 rushing yards, 14 and 20 in the past 2 games?
Yeah,
120 was the touchdown run that he had to win that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a tough one when you look at it. Now, granted, when you see those like, oh, can they win the football game? Then you take the 3 knees at the end and lose 3 yards. He's not going to do that. I don't love that, but it's such a low number that you're asking him probably to run 1 time. He could probably get it.
So he's not a high volume. He's not a running quarterback. He gets yards via scramble. The one thing I would say is if you like that, you should probably be backing the Bills to cover in some capacity, thinking that they are in the Texans, are in a full passing game script, and then he has to run because he's scrambling. And it's not that they're designing runs for Davis Mills. That's just what it comes down to. So if he has to pass and scramble, it's because the Bills are covering.
Let's see what else we got here tonight. Let's see some team touchdown marketplaces here as it's coming up squirrely here on Bet365. Let me just log in quick because some of those markets are fun to look at where the team totals are at. What are the team totals tonight, by the way, Tom? Do you have those up?
Yeah, I'll get them. So Chop is asking, so Kincaid's not playing. I'm on Dawson Knox for the TD. Kincaid is inactive for the second straight game. Dawson Knox is who I'm using for the FanDuel TD jackpot. Plus, it's $390 now. I got it at, I don't know, $350 earlier today.
Bills
team totals.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Team total for the Bills. Houston's at 19.5. Bills is at 24.5.
It's 24.5. That's interesting. Is that probably? I'd rather take that because they're over 2.5 touchdowns at minus 150 for the Bills. Like, yeah, you would just take the 24.5 then at that point. Because usually you try to square it in. It's like, okay, I need 3 more field goals. Why don't I just take the touchdowns? But that's not nearly enough, minus 2. I would rather take the team total. And it's 19.5 for the Texans.
Yeah.
3 touchdowns for the Texans is a 2-to-1 price. Plus money, 1.5 touchdowns is minus 180.
If the Texans get to 21, the Bills get close to 30 and the game is over. I'm not sure if I see that happening. Yeah. Like 24-20, that's right at the total. It's actually right near the spread.
Yep.
I'm hesitant to say that the Texans put up a huge performance today. I am. And I was hesitant about it on Monday. I said I would be surprised if the Raiders scored more than 17 points, and that's where they ended. They ended with 16.
How about this one, Tom? James Cook and Woody Marks. They each record 5 rushing yards in each quarter, plus 320. That's interesting.
You would like to think that's pretty simple.
How about your 25 per half, Tom? James Cook, Woody Marks, 25 each half, plus 350.
So I would say yes. I would say yes in the first half, and then the second half is dependent on Marks and if the Texans are behind. Because if they're behind, I don't think he'll get there. If it's close.
Here's a good one, Tom. Khalil Shakir and Nico Collins. They each have 25-plus receiving yards in each half. It's almost 10-1. Like, I think if you get that in the first half, you're getting it. Like, I really do. Like, make it through the first
Is this under a game special receiving?
Game specials in FanDuel. Just the game specials.
Just the game specials. Yeah. Popular? Let's see.
Plus 950.
Honestly, it comes down to second half Shakir.
Yeah.
I think Collins will be there. Yeah. I think if you get through the first half, you will be sweating out the last 25 from Khalil Shakir, and hopefully he gets it done in the third quarter. That's actually not that bad.
Again, we know how these don't work out. And so many times, like, dude, I didn't even get it in the first quarter. Right. But look at this one, Tom. 22-1. Shakir and Collins, 5 yards receiving in each quarter.
Yeah. I mean, that is in each quarter.
Yeah. You best ask him to get a catch a quarter for each guy. It's not bad. Because when you're like, Nico Collins is the go-to guy. Like, Khalil Shakir doesn't have like, hey, Stephon Diggs is on the outside. It's very interesting. Now, I'm not high on Shakir. I thought he'd have a much better season and be a little bit more dominant than he is right now, but maybe it's just a product of I don't have wide receivers covering on the outside, so I get like a lot of looks in the slot from the other defenses. But those numbers are high. And again, you're getting these because the total's in the low 40s, but these aren't usual price points that you look at that point.
Honestly, the Khalil Shakir Collins 25 each half for whatever you want to call it, throwaway money. Yeah. People like to say beer and pizza money. It's not the worst bet.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I kind of like it.
How about this, Tom? James Cook, Nico Collins, if you think there's going to be scoring tonight. And again, I don't think there's going to be a ton, but 4 touchdowns combined for Marks, Cook, which is both starting running backs, then Nico Collins in there, a plus 800. It feels like you need a 2-touchdown night from James Cook at that point, or a 2-touchdown number for Collins. at that point.
Yeah, it would have to be two. Like, I would be surprised if Marks did the lion's share of the work for that.
Yeah.
It would have to be they all get one, and then Cook or Collins, like you
Yeah.
said, they do the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Seems about right at that point here, but there you go. So a little slip through all the way through. What do we got coming up this week, by the way, on Thursday night? We got, next Thursday. Oh, it's
Next
Thanksgiving.
Thursday's
Right.
Thanksgiving.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Monday Night Football game, Carolina, San Francisco. Actually, not that bad. I do think we get some points on that night, too. Sunday schedule, interesting. By the way, let me get your thoughts here on Pittsburgh. Think Aaron Rodgers should play this weekend or no?
should he play?
Yeah.
No.
He's trying.
I know he's trying.
I can't even believe he's practicing.
Should he play? No.
Yeah.
Based on where they are, just in terms of like the playoff picture overall.
Yep.
Could they like squeeze their way to a win without him? Maybe, but a loss isn't like a loss doesn't end their season.
Yeah.
So I'd rather roll the dice and
I like Chicago in that game.
I roll the dice. Hopefully that their defense comes through and whatever happens happens. But the him resting and being healthy for the last few weeks is more important than this being a lingering issue. And I know, like, I'm not a doctor. I know it's not going to be solved in 1 week. Or it's not he's not going to be fully healthy. But you'd rather just take the time than not.
Yeah, because we'll do a Sunday show together and have some fun with it. But also, let me get your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders this weekend.
So I talked to Kevin about this last night. His line is like 165 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Here I have two thoughts about it. The Browns go into the game and be like, this is a Quinshon Judkins game. We're going to hand the ball to him 25 times, and we're going to run over the Raiders defense. And we're doing this because, A, we want to come away with a win, and that's what Kevin Stefanski is thinking. They're doing it from a team perspective, and they want to essentially, insulate Sanders from mistakes, right? They don't want him to have it. Or they say, hang on, this is a really, really soft landing spot to have your first career start. Like, we're not going to get many defenses that are worse than the Raiders. So you might as well let him throw the ball 35 times, 40 times. Like, it's either going to be a very heavy run game, or they're just going to let him sling it. Because if this is such an easy landing spot against the Raiders, you might as well see what you have. Like, can he step up and prove that he's the guy? Even if it's against bad defense, you'd rather have him be the part. Because if he plays badly and Dylan Gabriel comes back and is healthy, Sanders loses the job. If he can't play well against the Raiders, and I know it's just 1 week of practice with the first team, but it's not a good look if you can't get it done against this defense.
No, and I look at it this way because, again, the point of the Browns winning is not like, hey, man, he was real efficient, like 9 of 16 we were joking about when I was on with Kevin talking about it. Like, his correlation is so odd. Like, it's 28.5 as his passing attempts, and his yardage is, let's call it, like 160. So their expectations are he's going to throw a lot and complete no passes, but also he's not getting baptized like, hey, man, first game out there, Eagles defense on the road. Like, he's going against a really, really bad defense that if you could just say, block Max Crosby somewhat, you should be able to do something, but it's one of those times where, either way you take, like, hey, I'm going to take the over. Oh, of course he threw for 110 yards. I'm not going to take it. Yeah, he threw for 175. Of course he was supposed to do that. So.
Yeah, like him going over,
like
a 190 performance would go over his prop by several yards, dozens of yards, but it's not like it's nothing to write home about for 190. Yeah. So to me, I said this to Kevin, like, it's almost just a stay away just because I actually don't know what they're going to do. Yep. And once Quinshon Judkins' rushing attempts prop comes up, that's going to be the most interesting thing.
Yeah. Good stuff there. Well, we got a Thursday night football game tonight. Buffalo and Houston. Final thoughts here, Tom. Looks like 4.5 now at FanDuel. So people buying in. Seems like in Davis Mills tonight. 44.5's probably the best number you're going to get across the board for these totals here. Some props that you like and also side as well.
Yeah, I would say Bills win, but they don't cover. I know it's a little bit of a cop-out. I like Josh Allen under 30.5 passing attempts and on Dawson Knox for TD jackpot.
Yeah, double me up here. Dalton Schultz tonight plus 330 and then go plus 150 with Nico Collins on that. I think that makes a lot of sense, and we'll have some fun here. And Tommy, me and him, we'll be back on Sunday, people. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.